I know there's a few questions. Like, everybody wants to know about the movie. Dude, are you going to be in the movie in 2016? Yeah, I'm starring in it. No, I'm totally kidding. Anyway, no, it's as far as I know, the script is still being written. So we're kind of waiting for Lionsgate and Haim Saban to finish the movie script so that we can kind of take a look at whoever they're going to approach for cameos. We don't even know if they're going to ask any of the originals back for cameos. We have no idea. On the other side of that, I have two other films. How many of you guys are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram? Everybody's got a face, a Tweety, Insta, something, right? If you're following me, especially on Facebook and probably Instagram, well, probably all of them, very soon you're going to see something pop, probably first week of February, for a new film that I have coming up, which is not Power Rangers. So I know you guys are Power Rangers excited, but this is not Power Rangers. If you keep, which is part of why I've got like this beard and my hair is growing out, and it's going to get a whole lot longer over the next 3 months because we're supposed to start filming, we're hoping, in April. And I've got to look like post-apocalyptic. You know, the world has ended and I've gone caveman, kind of thing. So, while I won't be screaming it's morphin' time, there's no telling what else I might be screaming. I'm waiting on the script. But, so I've got that film coming up. I've got another film coming up after that, which is kind of a feel-good, not love story. I mean, I guess it's kind of one of these films, you might call it Christian-based, even though they're not really beating the Bible. Kind of what it is, I play a leading support role underneath the absolute lead. And kind of it's supposed to be something where I talk with these guys, and he goes off to LA, has this great big career, and he comes back to small town Ohio, and everybody's like, you think you're the man, you need to get back to your roots. And there's a lot of reference to the beginning and how things got started. And there's some battles between his character and mine because we used to wrestle together in college. So a lot of cool stuff coming up with film work that you will definitely be seeing all over my page here very soon. I've got another series in development, which is going to be pretty cool. I end up playing a cop or an FBI agent who chases down the bad guys. How many CSIs and bad guy series are on TV right now? Here comes another one. Are you ready for that? Hopefully, we'll be shooting that before the year is out. But just kind of waiting on some stuff. So if you're watching Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, stay tuned because there's more coming. So that kind of gets right to the movie part where everybody's like, are you going to be in Power Rangers 2016? I don't know. I can tell you that. I don't think anybody knows yet. And if they tell you they know, I'd like to know how they know because the script's not done yet. But anyway, so what about questions? You guys got anything else? No, I hit all the questions. Wow. That's at Psychic Friends Network. I've been training all week on that one. Is that a hand in the back? All I can see is a figure with something sticking up. Is that a hand? Oh, no. All right. It's blinded by the light. Here's a question. What's your question? I would love to do a good comedy. If it was something that was really well written, I have a pretty crazy sense of humor. So I enjoy stuff like that. Friends. How many of you guys followed Friends? Okay, so Friends is like one of the old school. And now you got like Third Rock from the Sun? Was that another one? Yeah. I can't remember what it was called, but I remember the characters in it. I laughed forever on that. So I love a good comedy with like a diverse background of characters with all kinds of in-story. Sex and the City, which I enjoyed the comedy side of it. I wasn't into the let's go shopping and talk about boys side of it. But there was definitely some comedic moments there that I enjoyed. Crazy sense of humor. So I would love to do something like that. Anybody writing a comedy? No? All right, well, I'll have to add that one to my plate. We'll see what comes up next. What you got? Super Mega Force I was approached for. How many of you guys know I was in the Middle East for about the last 4 years? So I was overseas working with our brothers and sisters in arms with Department of Defense, working as a medic attached to military operations for quite a while. Anyway, I'm home now, and the question that you tied in, what was it? Super Mega Force. I got an email invitation from the casting agent. I don't remember her name at the time. And she said, hey, we'd love to have you in New Zealand for Super Mega Force. I said, well, when are you going to film? She gave me the dates, and I said, I can't, because I was already contracted. And They don't let medics just up and walk away from contracts in the Middle East. They tend to frown on that because medics are an important commodity overseas. So anyway, I had to veto that one, but it would have been pretty neat. Would have been pretty neat. And did you guys hear his question? Did I get the invitation for Super Mega Force? So that was the answer to that question. Another question, anybody? What you got? How well was Tommy today when you first started? I might have got paid more if I worked for free. Does that sum it up? Okay. I mean, is that too honest? They tell me you're like, Austin, you can't say that. Well, I just did. So, yeah, I'm pretty sure I'd get paid more if I worked for free.
If I can interrupt really quick. Sorry, Mr. St. John.
Yeah.
If you guys do have any questions for Mr. St. John, we do have a microphone podium right here, so you guys can come up and you can ask a question without having to really shout it out that loud, and so everybody can hear the rest of the questions. So thank you, guys.
Up to you. Any other questions? I feel like I should be sitting down there with y'all. I always hate this.
Go to the microphone.
Or else.
Are you still cool with the other Power Rangers, the actors that played them?
What's that?
Are you still cool with the other Power Rangers, the actors that played them? Do you keep in touch with them at all?
Most of them I hadn't, I hadn't talked to, and some of them I still haven't talked to in 20 years since the day I left the show. Amy Jo, I haven't talked to her or had phone call or email or anything probably since the day I left the show in the mid-90s. David Yost, I see him all the time on the road on tour. Walter Jones is probably the one guy. He was my best friend, still is. And we had a lot of contact throughout the years. Sometimes a year would go by, maybe two, but we'd always pick up right where we left off. And he was the guy that is actually responsible for telling me about these conventions that got me back. I called him back while I was on the Kuwaiti-Iraqi border, and I was like, dude, I'm done. I need to come home. Need a break from this. And he's like, well, you're not going to believe what I'm doing. I was like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm on the road doing conventions, meeting fans. I was like, they're not 6 anymore. He's like, yeah, they grew up. And I went, no, they didn't. Stop. And he's like, yeah, they grew up. And I was like, wow, what are they saying? And then he told me about some of the really funny, heartfelt moments. And then he told me about some real intense moments, stories that fans had shared with him and had discussed about how myself or one of my other castmates may have impacted the lives of some of the folks that you may know as Ranger fans. So he ended up kind of bringing me back in to get me back in touch. Let's see, Walter Twee passed away, and that covers the original 5 that we were auditioned and cast and hired together. Those are the first 5 as far as, well, they were the first 5 here in the English-speaking world. Later, Jason Frank came on next. I hadn't seen him from the series until I came back for Zeo as a Gold Ranger, and then I did Forever Red. And Forever Red, I saw him for a day or two on set. We kind of chatted, caught up. And then I haven't seen him since. I know he's got his own convention schedule, which I think probably keeps him pretty busy. And then I met a lot of the new guys. Power Morphicon this year. You know there's been over 100 cast members now for Power Rangers? Dude, when I got hired, there was 5. There's 100 now, 100 plus. They hit episode 800 this year. So I'm a little blown away every time I go. And there was a female Red Ranger. Can I get a what for that? Is that not cool? I got to meet her for 3 seconds because she was surrounded by 1,500 other Red Rangers. I was like, wow, I multiplied and turned into a girl. What happened? So anyway, I wish I'd had more time to talk to her. She was pretty young. She seemed really cool, down to earth. She seemed to have a lot of confidence, the inner strength you would expect from a leader. And it's really cool to see a woman in today's day and age get up and project and be what that character requires. The Red Ranger is a powerhouse. That is the rock that the show revolved around. I mean, that's the center of the universe on the show. He or she is the man. And to see a lady get up there and do that successfully was really cool. So, but that's pretty much who I've seen. Lots of new guys. Some of them I can't even remember their names because it was, hey man, how are you doing? Oh, you're that guy. Cool, good to meet you. I got to go over here. Oh, I got to go over there. Photo shoot, panel. What are you doing? I'm trying to go pee. crazy. I mean, so it just depends on how crazy it is. So, but some cool peeps, definitely. Next question. Yes.
Come up to the mic.
She will kung fu you. I saw. Woo.
I'm not sure how involved or how much you follow it, but what would be your thoughts if CM Punk decides to face JDF?
I hope it's cool.
You think Punk would kick his butt basically, or would you like to see it?
I'll be honest with you. I don't know anything about Punk. I know that Frank has had some form of a career, but I haven't followed any of it for either of them. So I really have no opinion. I'm sure it'll be a good match, but I'd be guessing. I don't know anything about either one of them. I think one of them was a wrestler, somebody just told me. And I think Frank has had 3 or 4 fights in the circuit. But again, I haven't followed it, so I really don't know. I don't know if it's an even match or if it would be a butt whooping. I just don't know. So I'm sure it would be cool, though. Yeah, good question. Next. Better come up to the mic or she will get her kung fu grip on.
She's a tough cookie, guys. Don't mess with her.
Whoa. Okay, we got one. Approaching. Yes, sir.
When you got casted for Power Rangers, did they have you watch some episodes of Super Sentai?
I haven't. I have people ask me all the time if I watch Power Rangers. I can tell you I did over 100 episodes, and I've seen maybe 4 or 5 because we filmed so quick that really didn't have a lot of time to watch them. And after I left the show, I pretty much left to try and grow up in the real world and be a real man instead of a TV man. So I didn't really sit down and watch myself all that often. But Sentai, I've heard, is one of the coolest series portions out there. And, you guys all know that I met Yuta, right?
Yeah.
Yuta?
Yeah.
The actual real first ever Red Ranger from Japan. You guys know who I'm talking about, right? Yeah, Geki.
Yeah.
You know him as Geki. All right, so I got to meet him, and we had some great discussions, and he taught me a lot about where the series came from and what it was really like. So that's kind of my throwback. If I'm going to sit down and watch a series somewhere, I want to go back to Geki's time, and I want to see where my character came from. Because for the longest time, it was like, oh, you're the first Red Ranger. And then I met him, and he's like, actually, you're number 26. I was like, damn. All right, well, in the English-speaking world, I'm number 1. He's like, okay. And that was kind of our agreement, but anyway. So it's pretty cool. Yeah, I haven't seen Sentai, but maybe I need to check it out. A lot of people talk about it. What's up? You guys are awfully quiet. I keep staring into that light like I'm getting hypnotized. She's got the iPhone with the candle action going on. Anybody else? All right, got a couple.
I'll keep you busy, man.
You guys can line them up. What you got?
All right, which Ranger did you prefer playing? The Red Power Ranger or the Gold Zeo Ranger?
Man, I liked them both for totally different reasons. Like I said, the Red Ranger is the center of the universe, as far as, at least, again, I played in a different series, and I know it's all changed so much since then. But in MMPR, he was the leader. Everybody worked as a team, and on occasion, he would have to make a hard decision in a fast fashion, and sometimes it wasn't a popular decision, but it usually ended up being the right decision. So the Red Ranger for me is kind of like mom's apple pie, for if you forgive the expression. It's like that one thing, that one place you go where it feels like home and it's good. It may not be the best dessert you ever ate, but everybody likes it. You can share it with anybody, and everybody gets why it's so cool. Goes great with ice cream and whipped cream, or all by itself. That's the Red Ranger. The Gold Ranger was the first time I got to step out and be the 6th Ranger. With the 6th Ranger, they give you all these toys. You got like these great big mantles, and you had the staff. I had a pyramid. I had all these cool toys that I didn't have as the Red Ranger because the Red Ranger didn't need it. The Gold Ranger and, all these mantled, extra cool toys, they're like, ooh, new toy line option. We're going to give him extra powers with this piece and that piece so that he can look cooler, be cooler, and sell more toys. But it was actually a lot of fun, man, because I'd be out there doing my thing, and they'd be like, oh, we need the Gold Ranger. Call Jason. And next thing you know, I come in, Pyramidas, and it was really cool. So lots of cool, flashy stuff. I got to be the outsider. I didn't have to always be in the mix. So I got to see both sides of that, and that was a lot of fun. That was cool.
Any other questions?
You can line up. You guys don't have to stay seated.
If you guys want, if you guys have questions, you guys can line up in the aisle right there, please. Absolutely.
Okay. Staying on? Okay.
I ask
Did you
that
have
every time.
did you have a martial arts experience before the show, or did you like get the part, but like, you know what, you got to take some lessons and do it?
No. In fact, with the original 5, when we got cast, Billy had some martial arts background, but he was mainly a gymnast, or maybe it was only gymnastics. AJ was gymnastics. I don't remember if Billy had any background. I think he might not have, but don't hold me to that. Walter had definitely had some, I think it was Shonryu, karate, and he and I got together. I had taekwondo, I had judo, I had a bunch of stuff that I had started at the age of 5 with my father, and I'd kind of come up over the years. But it was one of those things where my father was a Marine, so we moved constantly when I was growing up. So I was always at a different studio picking up portions of different things, different styles, different pieces. So when I came, I think I'd just come out of Taekwondo, was my most recent, so I had a lot of the high flashy kicks, which is probably what won me the part. But yeah, I had definite background.
Yeah, I was just about to ask, did you have to do like a performance before that?
Oh yeah,
Auditioning.
right there at the
Okay.
auditions. For my character, they made it clear day one. They had me do a monologue, and then they said, "Do you know any martial arts?" I was like, "Yeah." And they said, "Great, show us what you know." So I did some flashy kicks and, and maybe a back handspring, stuff like that. And they were like, "Great," and I got a call back. Later is when it got really intense. They brought in, what was his name? He did all the stunt work for, I think it was like Red Sun Rising or something, a bunch of the big films that were
Yin
coming
Yang
out
Man?
then. Huh?
Richard something, I think?
No, not the stuntman that actually worked the show. This was a guy who was doing actual live film work at the time. I can't think of his name. It'll come back to me. But anyway, they brought him in from 20th Century Fox, and they set us up, and we did these massive choreographed fights. And I remember after sparring with him, and I mean, he was a master. I think it was Wateroo was his style. And I can't believe I can't remember his name. I've said it in so many panels. It's just escaping me right now. But we had a lot of really intense sparring, and I remember him going to the director, and the director said, "Can he handle it?" And he looks at him and says, "Yes." And so I had to work hard. You know, in the beginning, they had people in the room, the directors, and casting people that were like, "Oh, do you know martial arts?" I'd show them something, but they had no idea because they didn't have a background whether it was legit. Later, they put us to the test with guys who really knew what they were doing and like, is he legit? And I got the nod, and I think that's part of why I got the role.
Perfect.
So, good question.
Mr. John, first and foremost, I'm pretty sure you've heard this from everyone, but as the fan of Power Rangers, I want to say thank you for helping shape all our lives. And if it wasn't for you, we probably wouldn't be here today.
Thank you, brother.
With that said, my question is, what was it like working as an EMT in the Middle East?
Well, EMT, you have to understand that's a prefix. It stands for Emergency Medical Technician. It's what follows the EMT that gives you a distinction or a level of training or really a level of responsibility that follows it. So EMTB for basic, which is entry level, with a national certification anyway, for a national registry of EMTs. And then you could do intermediate. Intermediate has gone away, and now you go to paramedic. Paramedic is the highest cert that national registry will give you, at least currently and for quite some time. I started out as an EMTB, went through lots of training, lots of experience, got my paramedic, and ended up, after a lot of other types of training, tactical training, and just because you get your cert, that's actually the day you really start your education, just so you know. I ended up overseas, and I got to work with Army, the Corps. I got to work with Air Force. I even saw some coasties down at Kuwaiti Naval Base. So Navy, I got to work with everybody. And, not always in the best of times for the people I was working with. And whether it was here in the States or whether it was overseas, it was pretty intense. And there were a lot of moments that weren't intense. Like, I broke my toe. I'm like, here's a Band-Aid. Go see the doc in the box. But other times it was more serious. And, being a 911 responder or working in a position where lives are truly in your hands and the decisions that you make can affect them positive or negative can be pretty intense. So it's definitely not something to be taken lightly. But if you can handle that, it's an amazing career.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, man.
Hello.
Hey.
Yeah. I just had like a weird question. What exactly is like every time I see you at conventions and stuff, I notice Jason David Frank doesn't come to them. Why is that?
Well, I think this entire year or last year, he's under contract to Wizard World.
Oh.
So, and
Because
his schedule was booked before I even came back. So I think it's just the right time, right place, wrong time.
Because I never see you guys together. That's why.
Well, you never see me with a lot of the Rangers. There's so many of them.
Yeah, I know. It's just
So-
like both of those Rangers. Like I thought there was something between you guys or something like a static, because it seems kind of weird.
I don't feel any static right here. Do you?
No.
There's no static. Is my hair standing up? Well, it is, but that's gel.
Just a bit.
That's gel. That's not static. So yeah, if there's static out there, man, you'd have to talk to other people. I've got none.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Anytime, man.
Was there anything that you borrowed from the set that you never returned?
No, no, yeah, I didn't steal anything. When I left the show, I walked. I left everything in my room, everything in wardrobe, and if it wasn't mine, I didn't take it. Should have thought a little bit more about that at the time, but I didn't take it.
Hi. So my question, I guess, is what does it feel like to be the hero for an entire generation? I don't know about everybody else here, but I know that growing up, I wanted to be the Red Rangers.
Thanks, brother. His question. Thanks, man. His question was, what does it feel like to be a hero to an entire generation? There's really no simple way to put that into words. I could tell you when the show was young and we were actually filming it, we didn't really understand almost the entire first year what kind of impact we were having in the world, much less with the children down the street or in the same city or state or country. As time went on, it became impossible to not figure it out, especially after Universal Studios. Universal Studio was supposed to be a single show for like 1,000 people, and in their smaller convention site, I guess, stage area, we ended up taking over their biggest stage area, selling out the entire theme park and doing 5 shows. And there were still tens of thousands that were turned away. People were in line 2 days beforehand. We backed up the downtown highway 101 for 8 miles, people waiting to get into the studio parks. It made national news. It was insanity, and we had no idea. But after the show, we clearly went, wow, we're clearly doing something that is moving people, is having an impact. And that was pretty amazing. But it gets even more amazing 20 years later as I come back to the circuit now, because the change for me is profound. I get to see all these little guys who've now grown up into bigger guys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, who are telling me how myself or my castmates have affected their lives. What do you say to somebody that says, I grew up in a really horrible area where everybody did drugs. You or your castmate is the reason I chose not to. That's pretty powerful. When I was young, the only happy times I had was watching Power Rangers with my parents, and we sat and watched you. Later, when my parents died, I would sit and rewatch the show because for an hour, it would bring me back to the happiest time in my life. How do you respond to that? I could tell you story after story after story I've heard traveling the world in the last 8 months. And it's overwhelming. It's humbling. It's powerful. So 40 countries, 90 languages, tens of millions of people. And to understand that myself and or some of my castmates had an impact like that, I just, to this day, I still don't think have the proper words. It's profound, and I love it. I'm so glad that myself and my castmates could be a part of such an amazing show, and it makes so many people happy. Thank you. Yeah.
I actually have a question. I'm curious, do you own any of your own action figures of yourself?
I never did until 5-6 months ago, maybe 7 months ago, when a fan came up and handed me. It's an odd conversation, right? You know, normally if you look at somebody and say, yeah, when I held myself in my hand, they're like, whoa, stop talking. You know, we don't need to hear this. But, you know, they handed it to me and like, oh, do you have one of these? I said, no. And then repeatedly over the last 7 months, people kept coming to me with other toys, other versions of me. No wonder I have an identity crisis. And so they bring me these things. I was like, wow, that's awesome. And then I discovered how many people like you didn't have them and wanted them with a signature. So now I collect them, pull them together, and I'll sign them if I have them with me, and hand them out to people that might be interested. So it's pretty neat. I remember when the first one was given to me, probably early 90s, 93, 94 maybe. And it was really odd because they didn't give any of us our own toys. Not the show, not the owners. Bandai created them, and we never got any of our own stuff. And it was actually a fan back then that brought me a toy and said, hey man, here's you. I was like, that is so cool. That's the worst picture I've ever seen. You know, because they had 5 million, 100 episodes. 100 episodes. They got all kinds of shots of this mug. And the one they put on the little toy triangular Red Ranger box was horrendous. I was like, oh man, you couldn't come up with something better. You guys hate me, don't you? You hate me. And then the other guys were like, oh, mine sucks too. I was like, okay, you hate us all. I got it. So it was really cool, you know, at 18, have somebody hand you a toy and go, this is you. And I'm like, I'm holding me in my hand. That's insane at 18. So kind of a mind trip, but really cool. So.
You actually have another question coming from this gentleman right here.
Hello again.
What's up?
I was just wondering, like, when the movie came out, the Power Rangers first movie, did you ever think back and like, oh snap, I should have stayed a little longer, like, or you didn't care too much about the movie?
No, I already had a role. I was already slated to be in the movie. When we walked, in fact, all of us were. When we walked away from the series, we each turned down the movie. So, which is why it was recast so quick, because it was right around the corner from filming. So, yeah, that film was ready to go, and I had the Red Ranger role. I was going to do my job. And I think it got a pretty serious rewrite after we left the show. But, yeah, we were there. We just walked away for the right reasons, I believe.
Actually, Austin, just actually a question going off of what you were saying earlier about how you've had so many people all these years come up to you and ask you or just like tell you that you've been their hero and that they've helped you out through difficult times or they help you relive some of their greatest memories. Is that actually what drove you into going into becoming a medical technician and a firefighter?
Yeah, I spent a lot of time on the show, and I saw, 17, 18 years old, I'm looking down in the eyes of little Johnny or Joey or Julie or whoever these children are, and I see the look on my face that I would have had if I'd met Superman when I was 5. And it was just eyes like this, halfway hiding behind mom's leg, like my son does now. And it was pretty amazing to me. After I got to see more and more of that, it wasn't hard for me to figure out I'm not really this superhero that they believe me to be. I mean, I play this guy on TV, but I don't have any superpowers. I'm not saving lives. You know what I mean? It was years later after I left the show, I thought, I don't know how I could really do that. And a little bit later on, I met somebody who was in fire and EMS, and he said, you know what, you should come down to the station and check this out. And I thought, you know what, that would be really cool. I could actually do this for real. I could actually have cause and effect in what could be life-threatening situations on everyday people in today's society. And I fell in love with it. And I thought, that's something that might make the people who used to watch me proud, along with my mom and my dad. So yeah, it had definite influence.
Do you have any other questions for Mr. St. John? Actually, I think, or else, you guys know.
Welcome back.
When you were an EMT, were you
I still am. I'm still a paramedic.
Did you ever take care of anybody and they're like, oh man, you're the Red Power Ranger?
Yeah, it didn't happen often. And let's imagine you're dying right now. You're not really looking for a famous guy to save you. Elvis Presley could be in the back of the truck while you're having a heart attack and you might not notice. I'm just saying. But there were a few occasions on some minor injuries where, like, oh, my arm, and, put them in a brace, give them some happy drugs, and they're like, oh, I'm feeling better. That's cool. Dude, are you the Red Ranger? ow, don't touch me, you know? So there were maybe a handful of moments like that, but not a whole lot. So most of the time when people are hurt, they're not really looking for somebody famous. And there are a lot of people that get embarrassed. They're like, oh, I can't believe this guy just did this. And they don't say anything. But then I get a letter at the fire station, like a week, 2 weeks, 2 months later. Be like, oh, thank you for taking care of me on this day. And 2 months later, I'd already run 100 calls. I'm like, which day was that? Was that little guy? And then we talk amongst ourselves, my partners. Be like, yeah, that was that little guy at this address. And we're like, oh, okay, cool. You know, so there were a few occasions, but not as often as you would think.
I have another question. So obviously you have fans here that are for Power Rangers and for the Red Ranger and yourself. I'm curious what question and answer you would go to. Like, what are you a fan of?
Stumped.
Yeah, well, no, I think question I get a lot, which is probably one that I would ask, is what was my favorite episode to film, or what was my favorite backstory? What happened behind the scenes? And I've got a couple good ones from that. Favorite episode to film was probably the very first one, Day of the Dumpster, and I mean the very first one, before Twee even came to be. Just because for me that was my origin. That's where I started. That's where everything I learned about film and TV and the industry, it all started there. And I had this Australian director. His name was Struth Hamilton, and he used to always talk to me like this. He was, he wasn't quite saying "G'day, mate," but it seemed like he really should. And he was really cool, and I had a great directing team. I had a great stunt team. All of the actors, Walter, Amy Jo, David Yost, Paul Schreier, Bulk and Skull, and Jason Narvey. They were all awesome, and they took in this. I was the youngest kid on the show. They took me in and really showed me the ropes. So that one means a lot to me. I had a lot of fun filming it. We had to film it twice, for those of you that don't know. The first one, we were actually kicking people in the head, and we were really kind of beating the heck out of the first Bulk, which was before Skull. Then the second one came along, and they're like, that's too violent, you can't do that, you need to film a second one. So we filmed the second one, and it was less violent, and then they're like, okay, well, no headshots, no blood. So by the time the series came along, you never saw us hit anybody in the head. Never saw us pop anybody in the noggin. And man, any of you guys ever watch Wile E. Coyote or Bugs Bunny? They're dropping each other off of cliffs. Rocks on each other's heads, rockets on their backs into trains. And we're too violent? I was like, we got to get some perspective here. But you don't argue with 20th Century Fox when you're trying to pay the bills. So we did our job, and we had a blast doing it. One of my favorite episodes to film was probably with Walter Jones, who played Zack the Black Ranger. He and I still love that guy to death. And we had this episode, I don't remember what the name of it was, but I remember the spider had to come in and get dropped on his shoulder. And he was supposed to turn and be like, sort of thing. And I'm standing across from him in the hall in school, and they drop it in. We're all supposed to freeze frame. Guy runs in, puts it on his shoulder, runs out of the scene, and then that actor calls, action. And then there's the spider, and we all kind of freak out. The guy who had talked to us about the spider was like, yeah, man, don't worry, I fed him like 9 crickets this morning. He's already eaten, no big deal, no sweat. But here's how you know he's gonna attack, just so you know. Those front 2 legs come up, and that's how he scoops the prey into his mouth. We're like, okay, cool. And Walter, I remember him, he's like, you're sure you fed him, right? And they're like, yeah, he had like 9 crickets, he's good. And so no big deal, right? The scene gets going, all of a sudden, director calls, freeze, and we all stop right where we are. Dude runs in, drops Homie, I'll tell you about Homie, drops Homie on Walter's shoulder, runs out of scene, action! Walter turns, and immediately the front 2 legs come up and he's pointing right at his face. And I'm like, that's bad. That dude said that was bad. And Walt's like, and now he's like, he didn't know what to do with it. I was like, should I touch it? I don't know. What is that, And next thing I know, the handler comes back in and scoops him right up, and it's all over. And Walt's like, whew. And director's like, cut, that was a great reaction. We're like, he almost ate his face. What are you talking about? And so anyway, we ended up falling in love with Homie. Walter and I named him Homie. Walter took him home, and we had an aquarium in our wall. So he lived on our wall for years. And that is the story of Homie, and probably one of my favorite episodes to film. Little backstory.
in preparation to becoming the Red Ranger, did you ever use any or take any inspirations from any of your childhood heroes or any of your favorite actors or actresses?
Absolutely, man. I mean, I grew up watching Chuck Norris. I mean, Chuck was the man. Like, even his beard was like the man. His beard could do things by itself without Chuck. Sometimes they separated just so he could be in more than one place at a time. Like, that was Chuck. Chuck Norris was probably pretty amazing. Bruce Lee, Chet Lee, Jackie Chan. Well, Chet Lee wasn't around, but Jackie Chan was doing stuff. He was doing a lot of the Drunken Master and other stuff in China at the time. So I watched a lot of those guys, and, you know, nobody could be those guys but those guys. They were amazing. So they were definitely heavy influences on my martial arts and TV background. What you got?
Out of curiosity, would you ever cosplay the Red Ranger at a con?
I wouldn't tell you if I did. No, I haven't. But it has been, I think the gauntlet has been thrown out that I should do that at some point.
Yeah.
We met Harry Potter in London, and he was a pretty cool guy. Actually, Zach, he's my con agent over there. Feel free to harass him all you want. And Zach, Walter Jones, yeah, feel free, go get him. Walter Jones and David Yost, I think, himself. We all met, I keep calling him Harry. What's his?
Daniel Radcliffe.
Daniel Radcliffe, yeah. And he showed up, and he had like these 6 English
bodyguards.
Big guys, you know. And we set it up. Zach talked to his manager, you know, our people. They talked, and they shared stories, and they set up a time. They're like, let's go meet. So and we had these huge lines going on, and we go running over there real quick, and we go to shake his hand. He stands up, and he goes, I grew up on you guys. Oh, my God. To hear that from Harry Potter, I was like, wow, that's cool. My son's never going to believe this. But so, I don't know. He was awesome. He was cool to meet. I found out, to point in case with your story, that he dressed up as Spider-Man and walked through a con somewhere. I don't know if it's true, but that's what I heard.
It is true, actually.
San Diego?
Yeah, he did during San Diego Comic-Con.
Yeah, so one of these days, you might have to just go walking up to Red Rangers and be like, is that you? I'll be like, mm-mm.
Actually, I can just picture that right now. Someone comes up to you and says, wow, your costume looks really great. Yeah, I know, right?
You should see what I did with my makeup. You got another one?
I'm trying to think.
Take a couple more questions, and then we're going to wrap it up. So next couple of questions, please.
Go.
Hi, my name is Adrian. First off, I want to say that you've been my idol during my childhood because I grew up watching Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, and Jason as well has been my most favorite Ranger. I have a question. Have you ever done any voice work?
Well, every episode we had to do ADR because we didn't film in some of the most spectacular of locations. So we would film something out in the open, and there would be a noise, or a plane would fly over, or somebody would say something offset, and it would get picked up. So afterwards, we would have to go into this tiny little box. You see it a lot on TV when you see singers in front of that mic right here, and there'll be a screen with ADR, and we have to lip sync with our character based on tones in the line to replace a line that got damaged or covered or something. Dubbing. It's called audio digital recording, ADR. So I've done stuff like that, but I have never been paid by anybody, again, because I left the business and I'm just now back, to come in and just use my voice. So although, well, I'll save that for later. I got a meeting on that on Monday. I've got some stuff coming out, so stay on top of your iPhones, those of you that have them. Good question.
Thank you.
All right, this gentleman has the last question.
Hold on 1 second. I have a question. Who is the green chick? Oh, never mind. It was a light. Was it the light?
There's a green chick? Green chick, please stand up.
With the big blonde hair.
Oh, I see her. Way in the back. Stand up. Stand up.
Yeah.
Stand up.
Are you green? No, step that way. Step that way. No. Step over.
Yeah,
it's right there. Incredible Hulkette. Do you see it? All right, I got it. It just kind of caught me. I was like, did you paint your whole body green? But it was the light. Anyway, thanks. Cool. What's your question?
So after you left the show originally, what made you come back as the Gold Ranger?
You know, it's just kind of, I've always been a really spontaneous guy. I love new things. I've done so many different things all around the world just because somebody mentions it and I'm like, that sounds really cool, let's go do it. And people are like, what, seriously? I'm like, yeah, let's do it. It was kind of one of those things. Shuki Levy called me, he's like, Austin, maybe you should come to set and sit down, we could, talk, I have ideas about Gold Ranger series. I was like, okay, I'll show up, let's talk. And so we kind of showed up and I sat down with Blake Foster, who was not yet hired as the Blue Ranger. He was filming another movie about a puppy or a dog. I don't remember what it was. So I came to that set, and Shuki and we had our conversation. He's like, so, I'm thinking maybe you should be Gold Ranger. 15, 17, 20 episodes. You come back, do some things, and it would be cool. Maybe do movie. Yeah, I was like, I know. Okay, this sounds good. Not really, but it was kind of like that. He has a heavy Israeli accent, and I can't do it, but I love trying because it just sounds so cool when he does it. But anyway, so we kind of talked about it, and it was right time, right place. I was like, yeah, let's do it. Let's go check it out. So we did 17 episodes as a Gold Ranger. I signed on for Turbo, the movie, and I was like, but I want to be a bad guy in the movie. I don't want to be a good guy. And they were like, this is an interesting concept. Let us think about this. And then the script came out, so I guess thought, action, they did it. And AJ and I got to be turned evil, and I had a blast with that. That was cool. So that's kind of how that whole mess happened. It was just, at least for me, I don't know how it went for her.
Thank you very much, guys. Let's hear it for Austin St. John.